Ooh. These controls are so much fun, you guys. It's me, the Cosmic Mama, and I'm here with the Akashic Therapist, Terry
Hey.
Smith. And today we're going to hang out with my friend, Peter Venero. Before he comes on, I'm just going to let you know he's the founder and CEO of Critique Communications, a conscious digital marketing agency. He does so many things. I'm like, Peter, I don't understand. I'm not that smart. Okay, stop. But anyway, he uses lots of tools to help entrepreneurs, and he leverages quantum marketing strategies to help his clients and coaches. But what I liked about him was the fact that he uses these tools. Like once you know what your personality is, what your needs, desires are, and what it is that makes you unique and special, now you use that in your introduction of your product and your company and your communications, and then you move out from there to help your business be more successful. So on the stage, Peter, it's so good to see you.
What's up, beautiful ladies? Thank you for having me. I love that intro at the beginning, though.
Oh yeah,
Dude, out, very nice. And my intro, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hey, what are you talking about? You're not smart. Hello, you are beyond smart.
When you start talking that digital stuff, man, I'm like, okay.
Tech stuff.
Hey, back up.
Some of us are already in the quantum, so the digital stuff can be a little bit just
I know,
confusing.
kind of like redundant. I feel like in some ways that technology is like this artificial magic that we get to use on the 3D.
I can say that I've always felt like, why do I have to go through all these steps when I should just be able to think it and then it happens? But we're not in that space, and I find it difficult going through these steps that they don't, in my mind, they don't seem to be in the right step.
Yeah, well, technology is just so at its infancy still as well. So everybody's learning. I mean, the internet is it's new to the public, but I think it only really came out it's probably mainstream in the early 90s. I remember going home, skipping school to go on to America Online. And that's really when it was becoming mainstream. But before that, it was a military project, apparently, by, I believe it was DARPA. And they were using it for a long time. As you do, typically the military will get technology further in advance than the public and the collective.
So, Peter, tell us more about EPIQ, and I guess we should just start with, before you even go there. Okay, so let's just say this. We met in 2017. Yep. We were in our little, those Rockefeller type groups, and we were like, oh my God, we're about to beat the system. We got to get out of the matrix type of thing. And what even drove you to that point? Like, who were you before you hit the point? And why were you even trying to go there with all that?
Well, first, can I say that you were so sweet taking me under your wing at that time, because we met in that course. I forgot exactly what the course was, but I remember it was finance, and it was like esoteric, and that's what drew me to it. But
that's one way to describe it, yeah, because we were supposed to be. Well, I saw it as that straw man class, teaching you about your straw man, and how to quickly go to jail by digging in your straw man accounts. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you will get yourself in trouble.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I'll paint the picture, like I'll set the scene, like how it even led up to that, because I've been on the journey for a long time. And I guess, so just to give a background on myself, so I'm American. I was born in Colorado, raised here. and then moved to LA when I was 18 to be my best gay self because I wasn't out at home. My parents were, traditional. I would like to say middle class, but it's more like, I think when we really assess the situation, I think most of the middle class were actually like more lower middle class, but they did well. They were, my father was in the army. My mom was a hair stylist. She is a migrant, a legal migrant from Korea. So my father and my mom met in Korea when he was in the service there. And so I grew up in a very strict household in terms of, mom being Korean for one, and also being Catholic. So double doozy there. And then having a military father, it was very much a very loving home, but, definitely all about discipline. And so when I was in high school, I took a senior trip out to Los Angeles and I was like, whoa, oh my goodness, a whole big city. And I just knew that I had to move there. So I ended up going there after high school, and I stayed there for about 6 years. I met my partner at the time there. He was studying at a art institute in San Francisco. I was studying at a community college in Santa Monica, getting ready to transfer over to the Art Institute. And then I started working in the corporate area around that time, because before that, it was all like, restaurant worker. I was a waiter, a buffet attendant, like all of these things. But I got advice from, it was basically just these, the job, like the job placement types of services. And they're like, you should really go into corporate, it'd be great. And, you can start off by doing some administration, completely different from my unique design as you were talking about. Which if I had that information back then, I would have gone a completely different direction. I'd be where I am now, but much further along, because me and administration is definitely not a match. I feel really bad for my bosses that I had to work for because I was not a detail-oriented person. But anyway, met my partner. He ended up moving to Australia. We weren't together at that time, but we had lost touch because of, I guess, just life. And we eventually reconnected thanks to the internet. And I went down there for a little trip and then ended up falling in love and the entire thing. And it was just like, hey, you should move over, you should move down here. And then we can pursue this creative agency, because I've always had intentions of wanting to just set up my own web design agency. And so I was like, well, forget the rest of schooling. I'm going to go down there and just set it up, because I was already into doing websites for friends. I had a couple of clients already when I was living in California. And so I was like, well, I'm learning digital marketing much faster than what the schools are teaching, because I was also studying at that time. And so I said, the curriculum is not even keeping up with me and technology in general. So I'm just going to go ahead and just scoot it down to Australia. So I went down there. We set up the agency. We were together for about maybe 5 or 6 years. That ended up falling apart. That was a big disaster. Huge learning experience. We're still friends now. But don't move into somewhere, especially in going to a new country, with someone that you haven't really lived with before and got to know them. And on top of that, like, work day by day, side by side in the same office. And so huge learning experiences there. We split. I had a short relationship right after that. I don't want to call it a rebound, because it was a year and a half. Just to be clear,
your messy dating life.
I have been the serial monogamist. I was a serial monogamist from like 18 through to pretty much like well into my 30s.
But you love Australia, though. You took a chance and you struck it out. And
I did.
Were you already was your business already started when you moved?
It was already there, yeah. So I had a whole bunch of clients there, lots of friends and everything. And by the time the relationship came to an end, I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna move back to LA. And so I went back to LA, and I remember I got a glimpse of why I left LA, which was I was getting really tired of the superficiality of the place in general.
Materialism, consumerism.
I had a good old time in LA. Don't get me wrong. Oh my goodness. When I moved over there, I made friends with people that were like in the Hollywood industry, producers, directors. We'd go to the glitzy parties and all of these events, and I had a great old time. I was completely asleep, just like, I call him Bubblegum Peter, or Pop Peter, and but then it started to get to me. I was like, I don't really like this. I'm ready for something more authentic and something with more substance. And so I was happy to move over to Australia. But when I came back, where I was gonna just get set up again, I got like a short glimpse and a reminder of why I left. I was coming out of this parking lot, and I was backing out, and this other car was coming behind me. I was at a 7-Eleven, and I almost hit the car. I didn't. I stopped because I saw him in time. But this guy just like leaps out of his car and then just runs out, and he's checking it. And the cars are like still like way apart. And he's like, "Oh my God, man, you almost hit my car. I thought you were gonna hit my car." And I was just like, "I'm so sorry. My apologies." And like, I'm glad that I stopped in time. I'm glad everything is okay. But I was like, goodness gracious. I was like, if it would have hit, like it would have been like a ding, which still would be annoying. But it's like the world is not ending. And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just stick it out in Australia for a little longer. Plus, I was getting pressure from my friends there. Like, how can you just be leaving Australia and your friends after you've built up all of this and you're just going to leave us behind? And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, well, good point. And so I stuck it out there. But yeah, I was like, good point. I didn't even see much of Australia in that relationship because my partner at that time was not a fan of Australia. He wasn't native to there. And so we didn't really get to travel around or get to see it. And so the partner that I met shortly after that split, mind you, like the early relationship was over like 2 years before that, but we were just like sticking it out and trying to make it work. And I then got the opportunity to see Australia. And I was like, wow, we got to go see the Outback and go to like Uluru and this majestic mountain, which is like such a spiritual place. I'm sure must have been like, I was thinking about this a couple of years ago. I was like, that must have been what had triggered my awakening, because very shortly after that, I started to go through it and I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that I just needed to be alone at that time. So I told my partner, like that next partner, I said, I'm sorry, but we need to split because I need to go be alone and like go through whatever it is I'm about to go through. I don't know what it is, but like I can tell that there's something that needs to come up. And he's very compassionate, very lovely guy. We're still friends as well. Actually, we're planning a trip for the end of this year to go party for this New Year's. We're like, let's plan early. So I started to go through this transition where I was just wanting to just be alone. And there was one of these nights where I was lying in bed, and no substances or anything, by the way, just for reference. And I fell asleep. And if you've seen that movie, Doctor Strange, where he's speaking to the lady shaman and he's all in denial, like, he's like, you're full of crap, but like we're just people, we're just here. And she's like, oh, you think so little of yourself. And then she goes whoosh and forces his astral body out of his body. It was completely that experience, but it's just very spontaneous and happened on its own, where I was just falling asleep and then it was just like boom, I just literally, my spirit shot out of my forehead. And I was floating in my room, hovering above my bed. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on here? And I can see myself there sleeping. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And then I quickly went back into my body again. I came up to it and I was like, okay, it's just a dream. I was like, that was really insane. But the thing was that it would happen night after night for a number of weeks and months. And I was like, I don't even know like what this is, but I was starting to just play with it and have fun. Like you have to learn how to walk all over. Like I couldn't even crawl when you're on that side because it's like there's no such thing as gravity. and you're just in this different dimension, this different version of your reality. And
well, hold on 1 second. Terry, what do you feel that was? You're on mute again.
You're muted, Terry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on mute. Okay, so you're astral traveling, right? So you were doing that astral traveling without having necessarily then, like some people will try, and you just did it automatically. So it's like, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, damn, I wish it was that easy. It had, but you play with it and you become. Do you still do it?
I still do it very spontaneously to this day. The astral world unfortunately doesn't mesh well with the 3D, and at that time, I think the reason why it was so easy was because I started to change my diet as well. I think diet has a lot to do with it. My body was a lot lighter, but these days it'll only just happen very randomly. However, if I have the time and the space, like I was doing this with a friend of mine a couple of years ago, who's also an astral traveler, because we met in the Facebook astral travel room, and we just create the conditions, and you had to go through the process of just like making sure that you're clean and like you're eating the right foods and getting the right amount of sleep, and meditation is definitely a big part of it as well. Which I'll still meditate day to day, but it really disturbs my sleep. So when I'll astral travel, the next morning I'm just wrecked and I just have no energy or anything for work at all. So I can do it, but I just need to have the space. In fact, what I'm so looking forward to later on, like once we're established with this community that we're building, is having a whole astral travel component there. And there's been some incredible people in the space, like Robert Monroe. I think he's passed on now.
Yeah.
He set up an entire, Robert Monroe?
I was teaching classes before we started.
Really?
That's actually what we were, I'm teaching, I was filling in with, and we're on the Gateway program. So I know I've been doing it since since 2000, 2001. So
wow.
I'm very familiar with all the programs from there.
Incredible. It was really, I got so much confirmation on what was happening because I was very sheltered about it. I didn't speak to anybody about it. At that time, there was no Facebook. There was Facebook, but we didn't have like the Facebook groups like we have now. So I was on different types of forums, just trying to get information like what is happening. I'm leaving my body at night and like swimming around the ethers. And yeah, I found a couple of groups there that were teaching it and explaining like what was happening and why. And so that sparked my entire curiosity to reality in general and history and what we've been told about it. So that started my journey to just doing more research everywhere. Of course, I started with the Catholic Church because I was like, wait a second. I was like, they should have told us because they would know that this technology exists, and they didn't tell me anything. And so I was like, I'm going to go and do some research on these guys. And so I did. And that's when I found everything, including all of the dirt, things like the human trafficking and the child rape and torture and all of that from the Catholic Church. Looking good, Cosmic Mama.
The R word, you have to.
Oh, my apologies.
You have to just be very delicate with certain words.
Yes, of course. I forgot about
the
word. I was like, hey, Cosmic Mom. I was like, somebody else coming on?
Yeah, so you started to discover the dark underbelly of the world.
That's correct. And I just hit the mother lode just straight off because what I found was that it's just the epicenter of all of the corruption in the world. Essentially, everything's coming from Rome. There's that saying, all roads lead to Rome. And I'm like, oh, so that's why all roads lead to Rome, because my studies took me further beyond Rome, which was over to Washington, D.C., because it's Washington D.C. that's like basically in charge of the the war machine, and so that's basically just creating cover for what else is happening. And then that led me to London, because that's the financial capital of the world, and so that's like the 3 city states. And I was like, wow. So I was like, they've got this entire planet, pretty much the entire planet, aside from a few places in the Middle East, which is always on the list for, invasion and bombings and so on. But I said, wow, they have this entire planet pretty much just bundled up, because that's when I came across the things like the straw man and these elusive trusts and so on. And so that was some really dark times. I mean, I would call that my, what is that called? The
dark night of the soul.
It was more like the dark few years of the soul, because I was traumatized after that.
I was looking for some capsules to,
oh, really?
just in case the worst thing happened. I was looking for certain type of capsules.
Oh,
and then talking to Mr. Cash, I was looking for diplomat visa, and my brain was really melting, and I was like, Mom, and she was like, I know, calm down.
Did your mom know?
There's people, there's adults that know, but then there's some people that are like, this is just normal. It happened. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because some people, they work with the dark and the light. And so they're a lot more accepting of this as long as they get their cut. You understand? And that's how things become complicit. Because I believe, like, if you say, oh, the elite and the rich, you think rich people can do things without poor people that participate? Right. Poor people participate in darkness, people. When there's a kid missing from the mall, there's a security guard who pretends like they didn't see anything. And then there's a certain police person that participates. And then there's a certain local, funeral home that participates. And then there's a local government, there's chains, like these things. You know how I would describe it? It's like Batman. I'm Batman.
Yes.
Criminals do a favor for Batman, and one does a favor for the commissioner. And as they begin to move along in their careers and move up, they move and they allow each other.
Yeah.
And so these things exist together, and they allow dark people to rule on the dark, the underworld, and then they got the people that rule above, but have a secret life. So there's this secret door. Like, if you want to know what life is really like, you look at Batman. That's a perfect example of how life truly exists. So,
was your mom in the military, if I may ask?
No, but she was a person who participated in certain studies and experiments.
Okay. Wow.
So,
Wow.
A lot of these adults too, like, you ask your parents, there's stuff they won't tell you. They refuse to tell you, like, and I don't know where, how deep is that programming? So we met then, and we just basically kept in touch. And you supported my business, I supported your business. And we're gonna skip 2020 when we all just were like, what? Did you see that? Because you just kind of contacted everybody. Did you just see that? So we just kind of go back and forth saying, did you, just like, what do you think about that? And
Erica was so sweet at that time, because I was super broke, like beyond. And then I was like trying to get into Dr. Cash's class, and I was like, my money's not arriving until like next week. And I just met Erica, and she's like, here's the access to my PayPal account, and just go pay it. And I was like, who's this girl giving like these random people access to her PayPal account? And I was like, oh my goodness. I just saw a beautiful soul. Because for me, I understand like the concepts of money beyond what it is, like into the form of energy. And so when I see that there's people that are like trusting and generous because I'm like that, I'm just like, oh my goodness, instant fam. I was like, let's go.
So we're going to skip all those. And then we're going to move on, because now business is successful. And I want people to know what it is that you help entrepreneurs with, because you work with conscious entrepreneurs.
Because at that time, I was serving more of the corporate world with my business, and more medium-sized businesses. And I do still have one major corporate client who has a number of sister companies as well, who are also my very good friends who I met in California, who've been very supportive as well. So they're still my clients. But the entire transformation that I went through the awakening and understanding, like who we are, like we're obviously souls in a body, having this human experience. And then everything that came after that, I was like, I reassessed what I was doing. And I said, I'm going to start to just go and start to serve conscious entrepreneurs, because I'm so passionate about helping anybody who wants to make an impact on the world, because there's so many problems that need to be solved. We're no short of problems at all. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about, is solving these problems. And so then I changed direction and I pivoted and I said, I'm going to start to support conscious, specifically coaches, practitioners, therapists, because they're the one that saved my butt and completely transformed my life. I started to do personal and professional development right around that time, because when I started to have those experiences, I was 33. I just turned 33 at the time. That lucky
wow, that's that Jesus number, huh?
Reborn. And I thought, okay, this would be a good time to start. Actually, I was approached by somebody, and he says, it's a great time to start doing some personal development. I was like, what's personal development? And so he just opened the doors to everything. He was that Yoda on the hero's journey that guides you. And so I got to understand, like, who I am, what my values are, what's important to me, painting a picture for my life in terms of vision. And then that really just sparked my interest. So I continued that growth track. And by the time I was ready to just completely pivot, I was like, I'm going to work with these conscious coaches and therapists and practitioners, because I see them as the leaders of the new earth where we're going, because they're having to do all of this work themselves first and foremost, and then they're creating these pathways for people to come in with them. So I'm like, these coaches and these therapists and practitioners, they are the leaders to me. And how awesome would it be to be able to empower the leaders, get them more reach so that everybody can have a coach and a therapist. And especially growing up in America, there was always a lot of shade put on people who would want to go into therapy. When I started to research deeper into how the mind works, my mind was opened once again. This was from Greg Braden, who I came upon, like, I think I was probably about 34. It was very shortly after that experience. And then I came into Bruce Lipton, and eventually, what is his third name again? The third musketeer. I'm forgetting his name, but there's three of them. But Dr. Bruce Lipton was really the one that got me to understand the concept of the subconscious mind and how powerful it is, because it's running 95% of our reality. And I didn't understand it. I was like, that is fascinating. And he says, you can reprogram this to have whatever reality you wish. Because I did not know that I was self-sabotaging myself for years and years and years, and just going into these loops of self-sabotage. And so when I started to experiment with things like hypnotherapy from therapists and so on, I was just like, oh my goodness, everybody should have a therapist. Because especially, given all the trauma that everybody's been through, whether it's, just upbringing in general, or like going through the public schooling system, for example, that could be traumatic. These types of things that are just ingrained in our DNA can be recoded. So yeah, that's why I'm serving conscious coaches and therapists now. And I work with a lot of early stage coaches and therapists. The only problem is, in order to really have a good go with your career, if you can have some sort of like just seed capital to just get your business going, get your basics down, like your email, your basic software, your website, everything, just to generate leads and to convert clients and so on. the better. But a lot of them are leaving the workforce themselves, or leaving the 9-to-5s, or going on to their own missions now. They might not have the budgets to be able to do that. So that's been a challenge. And so then I decided, okay, well, let's solve that problem, because I'm really excited about how you can take money and just multiply it through different types of investment strategies. I was learning that over the years, because now with the dawn of blockchain technology, things like decentralized autonomous organizations, and it's called DeFi, which is decentralized finance. There's so much opportunity for real capital growth that is, it's more than it's sustainable, but it's also quite secure, depending on which one you're going with. So I was like, let's form a company, and that's what we're incubating next at the moment, which is birthing EPIQ Society as the community that Creatia is going to be serving. What I see with EPIQ Society is really just correcting all of the atrocities that we see with our everyday society, from education, number one, and healthcare and finance. I'm really focusing on those areas. And I just see it as being this overlay, sort of like this mesh overlay to everyday society, to just enhance what we already have. By that, what I mean is, everybody's living and everybody's working, and most people are relying on the public systems. And part of my research was to understand that there's two entire worlds just operating side by side. Aside from light and dark, there's the public system and the private system. And then the public system is where there's obviously like Washington, D.C., and the legal framework, and the financial sector, and education, and everything else that those touch. And that's what the everyday people interact with. And then there's the private side, and these are the more affluent individuals who have their own estates and their own private jets, and private healthcare, private schooling, etc. So these two entities are running side by side. And I said, all you really have to do is just create a community where we can actually start to bring these private types of institutions, those principles, into a community. Because I'm in touch now with so many incredible, coaches, as I mentioned, and teachers who have different types of curriculum, so education, and healthcare providers, and financial professionals, and so on, where if we came together as a community, as opposed to just all working individually in these, trying to work within the public sector, we can actually create a really high quality of life just in and of ourselves, that would just supplement our everyday lives. And so that's the premise behind it. Of course, there's definitely some personal interest in there for me, because I don't like to work all the time. And, I'm learning hard lessons about, working all the time and like burnout. I just had like my major second burnout for the last time at the end of last year. And so a big part of that was because I was not doing enough self-care. I wasn't having enough fun. I wasn't traveling and actually just enjoying myself. And so I said, this is going to be a great opportunity where we can bring some very cool lifestyle perks and different types of offerings into our community through various types of partnerships. So we're in touch with a few potential partners that will plug into the community. The community is not launched as of yet. We're focusing on the business center. We call it EPIQ Business, which we have a Facebook group if you'd like to join, EPIQ Business on Facebook. And we're just getting the commerce side of everything of the community started first, and then we're going to start to branch out to our own friends and family and bring them into the lifestyle components once that's launched. So it's a few years plan, but I'm extremely excited about it, because we're also going to have our own cryptocurrency as well. That's going to be completely decentralized. It's going to be solving problems, things like finance as well. We're even looking at different types of insurance, possibly, where instead of just paying insurance companies and, you don't make a claim and that money just gets thrown away. Instead, well, it doesn't get thrown away. It goes into the pockets of like the middlemen and, the the shareholders. But we're going to be bringing that capital back into the community and putting it back to the community. One of those is going to be in the form of UBI, Universal Basic Income, which can be controversial to some. Some are like, I'm so against UBI because people are going to be lazy and they're not going to work. But I'm like, you know what? Money is like I came a long way with like my money story is shocking because I had the worst relationship with money early on. I was told never to ask for money. I was always told like, money doesn't grow on trees, all of those stories. And so, part of that self-sabotage that I told you about was always like pushing money away. Even with getting new clients, I'd be like, oh, I can just do that for free. No, don't worry about it. And that was contributing to my own poverty. So I had to do a lot of mindset work, a lot of subconscious reprogramming to understand that money is just a vehicle to move around energy and communication, essentially. And so
besides that, though, money just makes you more of who you already are.
Thank you.
You're greedy. The more money you have, the more greedy you are.
Yes.
If you're stingy and selfish, that it's just going to prove it more. If you have a temper or a drinking problem or a drug problem or a sex addiction, any type of problems and addictions you have, it just multiplies with money. But if you're generous, the problem for people like us is we're so generous. We like to give things away so much. So money just makes us more like, here.
Absolutely.
So we just keep plotting and finding ways to like use our money. And I'll tell you, when we met in 2017, what I was looking forward to was a doomsday prepper type situation. And I joined a financial firm and I said, you know what, if I get this money by working in the financial firm, then we can build a new earth, because we can't build a new earth in poverty.
Exactly.
So if I don't have any, what do you call assets, then how do I build a school or an underground bunker or a shelter for anyone else if I don't have it? So I can see where people are saying, oh, no, the money. And it's like, okay, so should we just, not own any land of our own? Which who does own the earth? At that time, too, I was like looking at my yard, like, who the hell put this line to say that this is where the property is? And where, you're like, who the hell told you?
Yes.
This was South Carolina.
Rome set it all up. They've got long tentacles.
No, we got like a wrong idea about money. Yeah.
Just imagine if there's just hundreds of thousands of light workers that are just stacked to the max and, super wealthy. Imagine the amplification.
That's the only way we can fight, because we have to have sustainability. And I'm going to show why we need our own sustainability soon. And we can look over this, because you're talking about building a community. And I saw so many people who want to build a community. And this is like a repeated cycle that we don't really understand. Like we kind of feel like we're the first ones. Like that's what Woodstock was about. They do this like every generation. A group of people gets together and they're like, we need to live off the grid. It becomes this reoccurring theme for generation to generation, where but
so I just wanted to ask then. So Peter, are you aware of Michael Tillinger's One Small Town? And then there's also Oroville in India that has this idea. So I think it's already taking root within the consciousness, right? So it's that next step, and so those are models, but how there's other ways of approaching it. So your way is a new way, right? Slightly different.
Yep, I am familiar with Michael Tillinger and his work, and it's such a beautiful community and what he's doing. And my whole thing is we just need as many Michael Tillingers as possible, because once we actually start, and we have a plan in place where we're going to be helping to launch other community leaders so that they can also form their community. And, it starts online, and that's where you can really get people to congregate. But actually bringing that and anchoring that down into the physical is the next step from there. So we have a plan in order to do that, which is just looking out for these other community leaders and really just aligning them by what their interests are and what their values are, and then giving them the technology so that when they are trading in the physical, when they are existing in the physical as a group and a unit, then they can also foster commerce in different ways. I love the ideas. When I first started to circulate with the Lightworker communities, when I was just having my awakening, a lot of them were very anti-money, for one, which was fine because I can see how money causes problems as well. And thinking into the future, I can see that there's not going to be a need for money at that time because we'll have so much innovation. There's going to be so much technology. One of my really, I don't want to say that he's my idol, but somebody that I look up to, his name was Jacques Fresco. He had this documentary from a long time ago called The Venus Project, if you heard about it. Yeah, have you heard about that, Terry? And I just fell in love with his concept there. It's a planetary resource-based economy, and it just gets all of the needs from clothing to different types of transportation modules, moving food, and all of the things. And I love the concept. And so when I was putting this concept together, even before that, I was like, there you go right there. Yes, I love that so much. And I was saying realistically, if we do want to get here, what we would need to do as a planet is all align on the idea and play ball together and actually manifest that together. But you need, like I said, the entire world all aligned on that. And I said, well, that's not really going to be feasible, at least not in my lifetime. But what I can do is we can look at the technology that we have today that's been given to us, like the blockchain, like cryptocurrency, like decentralized autonomous organizations, and we can form these communities online and then help them to anchor themselves in the physical. And then once that's happening, they can actually start to connect and come together and all basically just switch online at the same time to activate that planetary resource-based economy. So that's definitely one of my inspirations for the project. My intention is to get it there, at least start the journey there. But that's definitely something that has inspired me. I love the community leaders, and like Erica, you're building your own community right now as well. And I can see that, down the line, these communities they're just going to get more and more amplified. And, how good would it be when we can bring them ways to engage with each other and to exchange information and goods and services, and then also engage with other communities that are neighboring them as well.
How does any of that do you or Terry? Do you have any information about the Tavistock Institute? Because was that a similar type situation?
That's a new one to me.
With Tavistock Institute?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it. So yeah,
I know they mentioned it with dinner with Andre. So one of them that I wanted to discuss, I want to rip this one apart. And so we're going to discuss shred by shred the Biosphere 2 project, because it was this well-meaning community who, like, we all come together, but there's these, warning signs for us as these conscious-based entrepreneurs or people with the idea where we want to build a community, but where others fail, it's like we have to learn lessons.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to go ahead and share a portion of this. It might be pretty lengthy. We're going to be hanging out for a little bit.
I like it.
videos because I just love it.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to blow your socks off. This is a part of, this is on YouTube. Movie on YouTube. Not on YouTube. This is on YouTube right now, but the actual documentary about the whole thing is on Hulu. So
I'm here too, and I'm ready to enter.
How was the sound on that?
Yep, I can hear it. You can go full screen as well.
The last breaths of this atmosphere for 2 years.
We were pioneers. We were the first Biosphereans.
How can you prepare yourself for journey into the unknown?
A biosphere is a closed system with plants and animals and the atmospheres all inside. We called it Biosphere 2 because Biosphere 1 is the Earth.
If we're going to go to Mars and the Moon, we better know how to make a biosphere.
Climate change is a threat. We were trying to counteract that threat.
We put in a rainforest, a desert, and an ocean with a living coral reef.
It was a global curiosity. 8 human beings separated from life. I don't know any innovative human organization that doesn't have cult-like aspects.
We called ourselves synergists.
John Allen was a very good leader.
He was a mind musician.
Here is your brainwashing cult leader.
The 8 Biospherians are now quarantined together.
The negativity started.
Fighting is taking away from us accomplishing our objectives.
That set off alarms to me.
I don't want to talk about it.
Members took part in strange costumed rituals.
John Allen was having paranoid delusions.
Things were falling apart.
There was something to hide.
And this really shocking thing happened. There's a sudden spike in CO2.
We were suffocating and starving.
It was not legal.
Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Here is this capsule of life from Earth. It was science fiction without the fiction.
This is an incredible moment. The future is here.
Wow, they were ahead of their time.
Hi there, so did you like the video? Well, stay with me as I have a bonus.
That video. That was very intriguing.
Well, it sure is. And what happened is these people were a group of people who were hanging out, and they were like a theater group, but they were super smart. And then they had one project where they were like, let's start a farm. And then they started a farm and called it Synergy. Then they're like, let's build our own boat. And they just were like, just stepping up their game and doing more things where they were just empowered by just doing these things on their own. Until one day they decided, you know what, if people are going to space, what happens if sustainable life is damaged on Earth? Because they're looking at the problems that we have, and they decide, let's build this biodome so that in case we need to do this in the future. But what they did, it was just an experiment. This wasn't something that was supposed to work the first time. None of that. It was an experiment. And I just wanted to set that up because this is recurring. That's 1991. I don't think it was really, I don't know. Is that really, there's other projects that have happened before that.
I mean, they were definitely early.
Oh, you think that's, I don't know.
They might not have been. Maybe they were just the early one that I think is early because it's just documented. But I mean, tribes have been around for a long time, and as we see this divide in humanity happening right in front of our eyes, which if you tuned into Dolores Cannon, she was talking about it a long time ago about the split happening with humanity, and I didn't understand why. But aside from the political aspects of that, which I happily resigned from when I was very, very political, and I even voted for Hillary Clinton the first time around because I was like the first female president. But then I quickly.
That's how they get us with these little enticements of.
Yes, indeed.
Things where we think we're winning in some way, and it's. I don't think people realize that we've been studied. There's this.
Exactly.
Time called the consent. oh gosh, the engineering of consent.
Yes, social
They
media.
know how to engineer our consent. Even when it comes to memes, there is the thing called, instead of comedic magic, it's called memetic magic, where they're using mysticism in memes to control us, where you think this is your idea and you think you're right, but this is all being manipulated and controlled. And that, I think in 2020, I pulled away from watching a lot of videos because I was like, wait a minute, there's some extra energy in here that doesn't belong to me. And it's causing me to either feel anxious, angry, or feelings that don't belong to me. And I have to like pull back with what we're ingesting, because it'll come at you as if it's for the good, save the children, but these things that are coming at you with manipulation. And we discussed this before when it came to, what was it, the religious groups that had been infiltrating, and you can see how they can somewhat overlap with Trumpers, truthers, disclosure, but then behind the scenes,
operations that are
this other group, of ultra Christian groups that were saying, yeah, and it's like, yeah, because it sounds familiar, it sounds good, but there's someone else pulling the strings.
Right. And that's what really fired me up at COVID, because as I was talking about the split happening like right before our eyes, that starting from the political aspects up onward, was because of my background being in marketing and understanding the powers of psychology as well, and understanding things like hypnosis as well. When I was in Australia and as the lockdowns were happening, they were bringing people online to watch she's called the premiere of New South Wales, of the state that I was living in, which is kind of like the governor in a way. And they were day after day just pumping out nonstop propaganda and fear and like negative vibrations for about it went on for close to 2 months, which is about the time that it takes to reprogram the subconscious mind in order to formulate it into a new belief. And so when we look at societies now that were impacted, I mean, there's like this mass hallucination that a lot of them are under. They've already been under for a very long time. But watching that play out in front of my eyes, using those tactics was, extremely frustrating. And but yeah, cults have been around for a long time. Tribes have been around for a long time. And I can see that humanity is moving more towards this tribal arrangement again. And, that's really what communities are all about. And of course, there's always going to be the concern of them turning into cults and having these erratic cult leaders and so on. And so that's why I'm really excited about being able to use technology that just decentralizes that. There's no cult leader. Everybody who's holding these coins all get a voice, who get to vote on the direction of what the community is doing, because ultimately what we want to do is help individuals with their own personal growth and their own self-actualization, be taught the things that we haven't been taught in going to public school, basic things like even like money management, credit management, and so on, like how to actually thrive. But I think the fundamental aspect of that is the self, and being able to understand who you actually are, and what gifts you actually have innately, what are your strengths. And that's why we're bringing human design into it, because I'm like, what perfect system is there? And human design is an experiment of our own. We can call EPIQ Society our own experiment, but at least we would have this operating system which helps individuals see exactly what their human avatar strengths are and why it actually came into this reality. Why did it come into this reality, and what gifts did it come with, and what are its strengths, and what are its goals as well. You can get a lot of this from human design. You can't get everything from it. if those listening don't understand what human design is, it's a system that combines multiple ancient systems into one. So there's astrology, numerology, the I Ching, there's the Hindu chakra system, and that's all just synthesized together using quantum physics. And so you get this map of the body that shows, or we call it the avatar, that has exactly like, what is that avatar's mission in this life? What are its qualities? What are its strengths? Even from a marketability perspective, which shows what are your strengths in marketing. If you have a business, it'll tell you if you're meant to be in marketing. When I ran my human design, it told me that I'm meant to be an entrepreneur. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm on the right path. And specifically it said marketing. And I was like, look at that. I thought that was so cool. And then it tells me what are my strengths in marketing. And it can provide a whole bunch of other information aside from that. But I said, just using this type of technology and this type of system to at least give individuals some clarity. Like, imagine if we were born, how people say, oh, well, he wasn't born with a manual. We weren't born with a manual, but we kind of were, if we look at it in the sense of human design, because it is a life manual, which shows you exactly, similar to if you buy a new car and then like you open up the manual to see like, well, what are the features here and how do I utilize it? You can definitely get a lot of that from human design. And if we're able to use that from early on, or even now, it's never too late, and use that to organize communities, to show, what roles people play and what gifts and talents they all have, how much more harmonious can society actually be? We talk about like how society was even constructed. I believe it was constructed this way. I mean, we look into history, and when we dig deeper, we look into areas like Tartaria and these early civilizations. They've been studying humans for a long time. So when we're in modern America, we look at neighborhoods and how they're all just scattered with these houses next to, situated with people next to each other who don't know each other at all. I believe personally that was done for a reason, to keep people separated from each other. And even before that, the work that's been done to separate the families, because previously there was always nobility families and families that operated as units for generations. And now the quote unquote modern family is, you grow up, you go through the public schooling system, you turn 18, you fly from the nest, you go into college, go get married, go into debt, have babies, go into more debt, and it's then
you get beat down for the rest of your life.
Yep.
From the moment you leave the nest. I want to interject on that too, because one of the things that you just said, yeah, your aunt and uncle and your grandma aren't down the street. Mm-hmm. Like me, I was here in a whole different city and no one was there to help me with my son, right? And I was married, and so you're isolated. And my mother-in-law, she told me, she said, oh, when I had my child, it was the best. And I was like, yeah, bitch, you were your sister, your mom, your cousin, you guys used to hang out in the afternoon, like clean your house, hang out, sip, and put all the kids in one room. And so, yeah, it was way a lot easier for you guys because you guys had each other. And then all the kids had each other. But even for your kids, like you can barely socialize your kids because you don't know the people down the street and they're raised completely differently. And I think it's interesting too, because I live right here next to a church. And I met some people that go to church with my neighbor, and it's like, how far some people drive an hour to go to a church when the whole concept of that is supposed to be your neighbor. Right. It's supposed to be a part of your community. So why are you going out of your community? Because you don't like the people in your community. You're going to the church with people who maybe have the same income level as you, or the same color as you, or the same whatever fits your comfort zone but it's not this thing that it should be. Like we should all be going to this church. But even right now, as one church right there, one church right there, a church right there, a mosque right there, and two more churches. Like I have all the way around my house. It's like, woo! And all these people, they don't live anywhere by here they have to drive. They're not walking.
Yes.
So this whole community thing is really strange.
Totally. And I'm such a community dude. Like I love community. I was always volunteering in the community when I was living in Australia. I started to volunteer for it was a Sydney Gay and Lesbian Business Association. And I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. I'm going to volunteer and like do some work for the community. I was, of course, helping them with their technology and their marketing. We got in help them to automate their revenue essentially just through memberships. And then I started to launch my own community. I was like, I want to bring a community to the LGBT sector, specifically for the guys, because even to this day, there's only communities out there or apps that are out there for just hookups, just straight up sex. Nothing about like, which is fine, like, it has its utility, but I'm nothing about actually connecting people based on what their actual interests are, what their values are, what their lifestyle interests are, and forming that. And so that was going to be a community that I wanted to launch. And then, speaking on the topic.
I like that because too much of it is based on
root chakra.
Sex. Yeah, it's too much because you cannot summarize your whole personality by your sexual preference. If that's the case, then you've basically minimized who you are into your actual preferences. That'd be like, oh, we're just gonna build a community, and I'm not gonna say it. Maybe it's all the ladies that like BJs. You know what I mean? We're just gonna build a community for BJs. Like we're the BJs, and you cannot do that. Like I look at that, and it's actually kind of frustrating that it's so limited. That this is your be all, and then
Thank you. I was like, there's so much more to people.
Well, I got a better example. You like my examples, right?
I love your examples.
And my name is, I won't say Terry because my first thought was to say my name was Terry, but like my name is Missy, and on Thursday nights I cheat on my husband. And on Friday nights, I like anal. So I'm going to build a complete community, like based on your preferences. Like, but I don't, and then the summary of who I am, if I introduce myself with what I like to do in the bedroom, how I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
Or people, you can still do that with being vegan. Like, oh, vegan, like people, they want to put that first over the summary of who they are. Or there's vegan and then there's, atheists like to do it too. I've met people that were like, hi, I'm an atheist. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like I might not need to know all that yet. Like people, they just pick this one small part of who they are. And that's like, it becomes their whole identity. And that's not your whole identity.
No, it's not.
I appreciate that you discussed that. And I get to use my bad examples. Yay.
I love your examples. They're not bad at all. But I was excited about that community happening. Unfortunately, it ended up getting side railed. We needed some capital to actually build the product and to launch it. And the investors that we had different motives that they didn't tell me about. And I was a total rookie, never worked with investors at all. And, I told them the concept and the vision and the why and, where we're going. And they were just completely on board. Like, this is exciting. This is something that we need. This is what, let's do it together. And so they had invested into it. And so there was about 8 of us working together on the project. And then we were moving the project to day 1, where it's actually let's launch the initiative. Now we're going into development. We're going to start the marketing. Everything was getting exciting. And then at the last minute, as soon as we started, they go, okay, so change of plans. What we're going to be doing is monetizing the community straight away. We're going to be releasing some advertising all over it. We're going to start to just capitalize immediately. And I had a major problem with that. Obviously, like we said, money is important because it brings in the fuel and the energy to be able to amplify our missions. But I was not comfortable with them monetizing it from day 1, because you want to build up the community first and actually provide value to people and actually just give them the experience to show what they could expect. And so if you come out just guns blazing, give us your money. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be the face of that. So I pulled the plug on that. And then I just took a break, continued volunteering for a little while. So major lessons learned, but I'm really excited about where we're going now because I get to take those lessons and infuse them into EPIQ Society. And of course, there's going to be more lessons along the way. We're all still learning. But what I'm most excited about is, just as we mentioned with Dolores Cannon, humanity is at this split, and this split is getting bigger and bigger. And now we have this grand opportunity to leverage the technology that's been afforded to us to create the new type of Earth through just many communities and being able to facilitate those. So yeah, I'm passionate about that.
This actually leads me right where I would like to go with. Here it is. When people want to say we don't need money, like, yeah, it would be great if we move past that. But right now we have to deal with where we are now. And where we are now is for us, we cannot sit and wait. And I feel like it's the thing where people would like to sit and wait. But I kind of, it takes me to the scripture when the master comes back and he says, what did you do with what I gave you?
Right.
And you haven't done anything. You sat on your hands. You're like, well, I know that everything was going to change and it was going to fix itself. So I just waited for you to come back. And then the master is like, okay, I'm going to beat you with this cane because I gave you all these gifts and all these talents. And I gave you, like this power to manifest and do these things. And you sat here and waited for me to get back. Shame on you.
Well said.
And here's the guy who, they used all their gifts and talents, and then they built the biodome and they did this, and then Peter, oh my God, you did all these great things. And he's like, you know what? Because you did this, if you have a small responsibility, now let's give you more responsibility. Because what we should be looking at is taking roles of responsibility. And if you don't take small ones now, then how can you have the bigger ones later? Who is it that you're going to get to lead? Because this is how we got stuck in the first place, because people said, he will do it, she will do it. And then guess what? They passed on these responsibilities to small groups of people, and those people said, ha ha ha,
right,
this is what we're going to do. And whether it be the priests or the governments or the people that you appointed as royals over you, that's how we all got our own butts kicked, is by trusting small groups of people to be in charge when you need to take your area, your neighborhood, your home, and you have to start being sovereign in this space.
Exactly. So well said. I love that point. Great example.
Thank you. And okay, so I would like to share this video, the rest of what happened at the biodome, because I know you were interested in this. I love this thing with the biodome. Just let me see. Okay, I got my clip. Bam.
Here we had this marvelous structure, and we had to do it right. We had to beam them up somehow.
This live news event package will include worldwide press coverage. Biosphere 2 is an idea that has intrigued Hollywood for years. Celebrities will walk us through the diverse biomes.
I am a big fan of everything that has to do with the environment.
They'll present profiles of the bionauts who've journeyed the world over, gathering what will live in their new environment. Network presidents agree. Environmental programming is a must for the 90s.
Definitely went viral. It was a global curiosity.
Biosphere 2.
Biosphere 2.
Biosphere 2.
Biosphere 2.
Biosphere 2.
Biosphere 2.
Biosfera 2.
Biosphere 2.
What an exciting assignment.
I'm telling you, it was so incredible. And I just came back from an ocean, a desert, a marsh, a tropic zone, a savanna.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the president and CEO of Space Biosphere Ventures and 5 of the 8 Biosphereans. Welcome them, please. Okay, have you got the picture? Is this something? I'm telling you.
People wanted to be enchanted. The notion of 8 human beings being.
And you see, they set them up.
And doom. There are accounts of how the commune members took part in strange costumed rituals. A Biosphere 2 employee told NBC News the people running the project are an odd group of individuals. He insisted on having his identity protected.
They don't really strike me as scientists, more like a group of people thrown together and given a role to play.
The appetite for sensationalism sells papers. Describing complex projects doesn't sell papers.
Did you feel attacked?
Well, I was attacked, but I didn't feel it that I was. Here is your brainwashing cult leader. Beautiful time in there. And then this really shocking thing happened. Jane Pointer put her hand into a grain threshing machine without turning it off. I actually remember unpacking the threshing machine and finding the tip of her finger.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There was debate whether it would be a breach of protocol for her to leave.
So you see how the celebrities came, the news came, everybody came. Rah, 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 they're great.
And then hijacked.
Decided, okay.
Then she has this
Jane
accident.
eats nothing outside. Goes to the hospital in the ambulance with me. I'm there the whole time to make sure nothing non-kosher happens. And then we bring her back through the airlock.
But everybody's been watching since the buildup. So much buildup.
And
this is just an experiment.
Just a blip.
Bias. What could one say? What are you doing? Bringing stuff in the biosphere? Bad news.
And she came back with 2 duffel bags, computer parts, maybe.
You see how they got the camera sticking in the window. So people watch them through the glass all day. It becomes like a reality show.
See how the media suddenly made Biosphere 2 into a game show where the only question was, will 8 people stay in there for 2 years and will everything work perfectly?
Directors of the Biosphere 2 project are defending themselves against charges of public deception.
In the forefront now is the question of whether living in this earthbound enclosed environment is possible without a lot of help from the outside.
Once the negativity started, John was very upset. And
so what happened when they first started this project, they started working with the Smithsonian and these different people who contributed. And then a billionaire came along and gave them some money. And so there you go. Just like your story, the investors begin to take over the project.
Yeah.
And then what was his name? Tony Burgess. This project was like Ed Bass was the billionaire who gave the money, but he said he wasn't really interested in making money. It was like going to be the long game, like 100 years down the line, that this was going to be something for his family, an investment for the future. Mm-hmm. But the saboteurs came in. You see, the minute that celebrities became interested in the news, to me, it just reminds me of today, how TMZ, it's always the media, and they lift you up like a champion, and then they smack your ass down and screw you over, always. And here it was, they hire one little person who starts making these little interviews and just passing along information. There was another gentleman who was at a higher level inside the group who was making statements. Why are you making statements? You're not even in charge. And so when this lady cuts her finger off, and then they actually start having problems too, because the CO2. So that in that previous clip, they were starting to get skinny, because what they weren't planning for was that, some years crops fail.
Right.
But outside the dome, when crops fail, you have all these other choices. But inside the dome, they just have problems cultivating, because every plant that you grow is sucking up CO2, right? And giving oxygen. So the balance gets off, because they actually had it monitored. Whenever you eat a piece of food, a vegetable, when you plucked it and ate it, you could actually tell how much it affected the footprint of this place, because it was so small. It was everything was affected, and these weren't things that should have been frowned upon because it was an experiment. They said when they started, they knew that it wasn't going to work the first time and that they were going to do it over and over and it would just become better every time. But when the media comes in, they say, yeah, this thing should last 100 years. And they start making a few statements and people are holding them completely accountable for every word that they say. They're watching them. And when they're talking about the rituals where they're dressing up, these were actors who had like an acting troupe and they would dress up. And you see how they were doing the Enneagram. They were doing these exercises with the Enneagram to work out scenarios of stress and conflict. How would we function and then they were just expressive, but they used everything to make them look weird and strange and sabotage them. And that project, it was signed over. I could see the pressure came and they ended up signing it over and selling it.
Wow.
Even those people individually, they've been sabotaged and mocked in public. And then some of them built their own little farms later on where they worked together. But a lot of people really got hurt in the public because of it. But these people were like geniuses, scientific geniuses coming together from all over the world. And they flattened, destroyed them.
We're recruiting Cosmic Mama to be on our due diligence team. Like, Cosmic Mama, we need you to sniff these guys out. They're wanting to partner, but we don't know who they are.
That's just it. Like you say, it's the guys that come along with the money that's when it becomes a problem. But we discussed some other people like WeWorks, because basically wasn't that how WeWorks was? They were building this community where they were going to work in the environment and live in the environment. And
it was a co-working spaces, and they were leveraging a lot of real estate in order to do that. They weren't even acquiring it. I think they were just renting it out. They had high real estate costs, and then it just imploded because of their costs, essentially.
But you can see the rope tightening because this guy keeps coming back, giving them 5 billion or like a million. He's giving them more money.
Right.
Why? On something where you haven't even seen results yet.
Yeah. I like their concept. I think they just didn't approach it properly, because had they had instead created co-working spaces of like-minded individuals who are all aligned on the same mission and the same vision and, variations of those, that would have been super powerful. But, they're basically perpetrating the existing model of divide and conquer while trying to create a community, which the two just don't work together. You need to be aligned. You have to be unified.
But don't you think that's what that underlying idea is let's divide and conquer right from the beginning so that it doesn't take root? Because goodness knows if this actually works, then it might spread. And we don't want that. So let's come in and squash it right from the beginning. So that's why they pour money in. And all of a sudden they change things because they can see that it does have the prospect of being
it has the potential.
Well, it has a potential, exactly. So
yeah.
Going to stop it before it even gets a chance to get anywhere. It's like, you have a great invention and you want to get it out there, like I know there's free energy devices. What do? They go and they buy them up and they squash, they never get to the market. Meanwhile, you've had this wonderful idea, but somebody will come in and give you $5 million for it. Yeah.
And that's where we are. We're talking about what to do funding wise in order to get it to the next stage. And the prospect came up of, bringing in investors or finding venture capital from private equity firms. And I'm just like, no, because that stuff comes with strings as we've seen. And so the only way that I can see to get around that is developing a coin that everybody can buy with their own money, and using that with the technology that we have today of resources like decentralized finance technology, where we can compound that and then bring it back into the community and have shared abundance and prosperity for everybody. So it's more like not relying on these, millionaire and billionaire type investors who come in with their own agendas. Not to say that they're all like that. There's some very beautiful humanitarian, heart-led investors. However, they also have an agenda as well.
So one of the people that really stood out to me too was Elizabeth Holmes.
Yes.
And I find it difficult to believe that with the teams that she gathered, she took people from Apple, didn't she? She took people who were experts in their field, and she had this idea for this miracle drug, whatnot, or the testing device. That's what's supposed to be actually a testing device. And it was supposed to be in CVS and Walmart, and it's supposed to be so easy and so magical. You see, they made the movie about her, The Dropout, and you see what they're doing with her eye. There are no photos. If you look, there's no photos of her with this one eye thing going on. You know what I mean? With the thing covering up her eye. But I noticed when they make the movie about it, they do this with her. And I think they play a really good game with the public. Like, oh, she's a ripoff. She's a fraud. But when I see her being interviewed by Clinton, I'm like, oh, well, she was already screwed, because I felt like people like that came in, and there was the sabotage when she gets invited to the Clinton Foundation and they start talking about her project. And maybe it's not what we think at all. Because I seriously doubt that she had all these scientists and they'd worked to a point where they had absolutely nothing. That kind of just doesn't jive with me. What I believe is that once she wouldn't sign over her idea, that the sabotage came, and she was taking big money from very big people, and it's just another pattern of, hey, you got busted with, you just got busted down and taken down. There was another one with her. Oh man, I wanted it. Oh, well, I guess I don't have it. I must have got rid of it. But when it came to her, I swear, I believe it was just sabotage. But here we are on the other side. Can you imagine someone making a movie like that about you?
I know. You gave me a whole new perspective on that one too.
Well, TMZ comes. When TMZ comes, TMZ is really a hit squad. You see, they do really fluffy things for, hey, how you doing? And then when it comes to Cat Williams, they're like, oh, you're smoking weed. You did this, you did that. And they almost get his kids taken away. And then you realize, oh, wait, he didn't do any of that stuff. And oh, he has a gun, but he has a license. And and TMZ just does this really good job with the other gentleman, Mel Gibson. Which I don't even know if everything that happened with Mel Gibson, I don't know if he really said all those things. We don't really know.
You don't know.
Mel Gibson is one of the few people who used his own money to produce movies that people just wouldn't have made. And he's definitely into the conspiracy movies too. And so Shia LaBeouf was another one who was getting attacked by the media, but he said how he'd been wiretapped for 2 years, and they had played a recording of his personal nighttime sweet sexy phone calls, and they said, of course we do this, because he was going to be in a conspiracy movie, and right before so they played it for him, and then they also had taken a photograph of him, his genitals, and passed it around to the whole crew. That's his humiliation ritual, right? And I've seen, where other people too, they like want to get a part so bad that they tell them to masturbate, and then they've spread this around as a home movie. So when it comes to this stuff, you're either pinned up under, and when you try to break away, now, they send TMZ, the hit squad. Every time you pass gas, there's someone there to say, look what he did. They sabotage you. This is very real.
Yep. It is indeed. My goodness.
Terry, have you been sabotaging people or no, I'm just kidding. You're like, no. So I know that was like the heavy part, but these are definitely some things I wanted people to consider. And this is just makes it more important for you to have your own funding and just so you're not controlled by other people's money.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I was sitting at early on in my awakening. I'm just like, money is a problem. Like we should get rid of money. And then I think it actually was Jacques Fresco, and he had very similar views on money. And he was saying that if we look at society in general, I think he said about like 75% of the problems that exist are all due to money, like money problems. And that's what's causing things like crime and aside from, crimes of passion and those types of things. But the money problems take on such a big, like massive portion of the problems in society in general. And so, then I came to also understand, like, what is this thing with the global currency reset and this elusive, Iraqi dinar reset and all of this. And I was following that for a long time. I still have a ear out on that. Like, you never know, it might be a thing. But imagine, like, if the entire world was flooded with money. Like, money, all it is just, as we said, it's just an exchange of energy. But if everybody was equipped and we had these, they're basically just like vessels of energy that we can exchange with each other to exchange the value, how much better would the world be operating? How much further can we get along with innovation and meaningful change where eventually there would be no more need for money? So there's that bridge that we do have to cross.
So in that time when you have money, it's not to sit on top of it, but it's to acquire or accumulate goods that can be distributed, maybe knowledge, because you can go to school, you can learn certain things. And I know you feel education should be free, but we're saying get to this point where you accumulate enough goods, enough food, enough land where you're growing food, enough education. I was discussing this with my sister. I said, if we actually hit the point where the lights flip out and there is no electricity, where zombie rules go into place, right? Because now money is absolutely nothing. Does anybody know how to make potable water? Does anybody know how to build a filtration system? Do you know how to build a boat or a hut? Or do you know how to go to a nuclear power station and turn the electricity on? Do you know how to even build a fire? What do you like? I would like to see us get to the point where we're actually doing these things,
just having natural survival strategies and tactics.
Let's have a convention doing going down a trail and figuring out what berries are poisonous, and we can just
just learn to be a human the proper way, and like just have our basic be able to have our basic needs met by ourselves. I don't think that's a bad thing.
How do we know when, what time it is by the sun?
Yeah,
get some old school stuff going on. Terry, go ahead and
now I was just going to say, just within the community that I have around here, there really is a whole sense of being able to have more of a community and live within that community and have, you have those basic values that you had, and, like maybe even community, like living in a, not necessarily a commune, but where you do grow things and you share things and you have that more sense of that connectedness, instead of being so based on superficial ideas, like, so there are communities or there are groups of people who want to actually connect into that kind of community. We may be stuck, within a city, but there is that real desire, and they're looking for that next step. How do I connect with other people? Because you sometimes feel isolated, but there are more people who think like you than you think. And and so Peter, I think that's what maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I think that's what you're wanting to build, is just that, create that network of how do people connect and actually go for that next step. How do I connect with a community that says, okay, let's get a tract of land and let's build some housing and let's live more as a community rather than separate from each other.
Yeah, exactly right. That's something that I'm very passionate about, because I give a lot of crap to places like the Catholic Church and the Vatican and so on. But that's not to say that the individuals like my mom, for example, who is very much engaged with the church and is very passionate about looking after her own community within it. And so there's a lot of great people within these smaller organizations that are community minded. And you can see that they do work because they have this camaraderie and they have these interests and the same values that bring them together, and they look after each other as well. But I believe that we're definitely ripe for using that same type of thinking for traditional types of communities. There's communities around, like, real estate communities that they call communities, these new developments, and you have a whole bunch of strangers move in there who have nothing to do with each other, and they have no interests in alignment with each other. And there is that strong sense of just separation, as you were saying, that happens in general in isolation. So being able to correct that in our day and age, and now being having the resources to be able to do that is super exciting. I say it's time. It's our lifetime.
The cat was pushing. I was like, oh, it's creepy. He had the door creaking. So right before you give us some tips as entrepreneurs, there was one last clip that we're gonna roll clip, because this is one of your favorite ladies, and I'm gonna share the screen on her. My goodness, this cat is really being creepy.
Why do you think most people don't ever reach?
I love him.
Their lives.
This is where people get it so wrong. One of the secrets to success is
Cody Sanchez. She's an entrepreneur who's invested in over 100 companies, turning over millions a year. After spending 15 years on Wall Street, she's now sharing her secrets to the world
on how to make money.
I think that is the question everyone's asking themselves.
I think every human should understand the language of money. It's not that complex. We just make it sound complex because the less people speak our language, the more we can charge them.
Boom. The less people speak our language. And so, like I was saying, let's get some education. And I think a lot of groups, I even see Alexis Rose teaching people more about Bitcoin. I kind of feel like the market is rigged regardless of what people think about Bitcoin, because I just feel like there's someone on the other side and you don't know who that is. And there's investors and strings. So I get kind of not really understanding that, but I'll finish.
But it's a language. It's a language too, right? And like, think about the languages that we speak. Like, how come nobody speaks Latin except for the courts and the individuals that are controlling the courts?
Occult knowledge, exactly. One more.
In 25 years,
the richest 1%
will control more than half of the world's wealth by next year.
The gap is huge.
This is why only 1 in 10 people dies wealthy. If you understand the language, you can become an expert in it, and expertise leads to a bunch of cash.
But what have you come to learn about what holds us back in that moment?
The people who love you, they want what's best for them, which is that you're safe, you're secure, everything's okay. My loved ones were super supportive, but they were always saying things like, is the grass always greener, Cody? And so we've become a generation of vitamin D deficient, alternative milk drinking softies. So I had a job I shouldn't have been at, a guy I shouldn't have been with, in a place I shouldn't live. But I was too scared. I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who just burn the bridges, I'll sleep on the couch. And so I needed something where I could stair step my way out of a corporate job. And then I realized this could be way bigger than what anybody else could pay me.
We zoom in on that moment. What would you recommend my first step be, Cody?
First, you have to...
Before this episode starts, I have a small...
So it's not to me...
Sanchez.
Yeah, and it's
She's
not
a prime example of the individuals who are leaving the rat race, who have such strong qualities and values that are needed to start creating the new rich.
Right, which that's like Robert Kiyosaki type situation where, and they're entrepreneurs that are telling us that, hey, I can't even say too much because other people don't want you to know that, and they want you to think that money is bad and money is evil, when it's the few that have it and their interests that are our problem. Other people's interests are our problem.
Right.
Because, you know, when you get together with the Bilderbergs and the G8 Summit and this type
World
of
Economic Forum, biggest,
they're worried about their family. And at some point, we have to worry about our families. And if we don't have any control over our own financial stability, and we believe that manifesting money for yourself is bad, I just really don't see what you can do besides just lay down and die around here. I don't know. What else can you do? You know what I mean? Like if your thing is to say, I'm just going to wait and the aliens come and I'm just going to wait. And
that's the thing. Yeah. The more we wait and we don't actually have any type of vision or plan for our life, then the more we're going to fall into somebody else who does have a vision and plan for our life.
Don't you wonder too how extremely wealthy people all go to church, but they haven't decided to give away all their money and say, you know what, this is the devil. You understand?
Yeah.
Because the thought that money is evil is something that's been programmed into you by people who have money.
That's right.
They don't want you coming over to their playground.
That's right.
So we're not recognizing that there's a program behind the program, you know, that here's just another way to plot your sabotage by you being programmed that, you know, it's better to be a slave.
From early on. And somebody made the same point to me. They were like, look at all of the Disney cartoons you've been watching from such a young age. Like, who were the good ones? And who were the villains? Like, the villains were the ones who always had the money. And then it was like the good ones that were always dirt poor and had to work their way up, or, you know, they were used in sabotage.
Well, I don't want to be Cinderella.
You don't have to be Cinderella.
I don't want to be a dirty foot.
Exactly. You don't have to be. We don't have to be anymore. Not in this day and age. Because now we're all connected by the internet. There's so much access to information. Like, I get much more education on YouTube in a week than I got in those couple of years in college. So we're really lucky to be able to have this technology if we use it in the right way. There's a lot of people that talk about how social media is dangerous and like how you're wasting your time on it. But what corner are you hanging out at on social media? Like, if you're just on, you know, a part of a platform where you're just focusing on things that have no value for you, that are not teaching you anything about how to make money or how to develop your personal strengths and skills, then yeah, you're probably wasting your time there. But these are such grand pieces of technology that we have now, where if we are strong in the mind and we know where to go on these platforms, and we're listening to incredible leaders like you two who are bringing, you know, so much insight and information to an audience, then it's really good use of your time. That's an investment. But of course, it's not valuable unless we're actually putting it into action, and the action is really where everything is.
I think it was my sister. She was telling me about this group. I think, is it the group that's in India? But you have to give all your money away, probably to them. But when you come, you coming through the door naked. You're coming through. and to be a part of the commune, but you donate all your money to them. Now you're over in control, being controlled by this group. Now they now have authority over you, and you can't decide to leave or not to leave. I don't know. Have you heard about a group like this, Terry? And I don't know if she's there. She could type it in the chat, but
Terry's here with us.
No. Okay, can you hear me?
Some churches are like that. Like you gotta join the church, or like join the Moonies. You know, back in the day, the Moonies were around, and they said, "Give all your money." You know, but the guy who's owning the church, he has all the money.
I think the place that you're talking about in India, Oroville, I don't think it's not set up that way. You pay a certain amount to go there for say a couple of years or for a year, right? But then like you pay it, and it's almost like you're paying in advance for your housing and your food and stuff like that. And so then you become part of that community. You may do some, type of work within the community, and then you're given tokens for your food and stuff. So you don't, but you sort of put out, I believe you put out a certain amount to join it. And then, that's for the length of stay that you're there, but it's not.
It's funny because that'd be like paying to be in the Peace Corps. You know what I mean? Like I could have came here. Did I have to give my money to do someone? I mean, I guess I kind of get it. Like you contributed, but then I'm like,
You're like, where's the return though? What do I get?
Well, you could have easily just done something at home too. You might have wanted to join so you can get that experience. And I guess too, you are going to learn because you have jobs while you're there. Where you're
So and you're doing
actually use that. That's practically an investment to learn how to live in that type of environment and how to build one yourself. Because now you've got the experience, 2 years experience, so you could actually take that experience back home with you and rebuild. So I could say that's tuition.
Yeah.
In some way.
It's nothing exorbitant. You don't give your life savings. I think it's a certain amount that you might. I'm not positive. I can't give you, don't quote me on it, but that's my understanding. So,
yeah, she wasn't laughing at your comment. She was laughing at what I said earlier about.
No, that's all right.
The little things. My bad jokes. So, what are some things you'd like to say before we go?
Oh my goodness. So I'm going to pass on some knowledge that I wish that I received when I was in my dark and desperate days, when I was going through my own awakening and had no idea what was going on or like what I needed to do. And it's the very simple thing, which is coming back and just investing in yourself first and foremost. And you can do that through a variety of ways, up leveling your skills, getting to know who you are as an individual by using systems like human design, which is like a map to show you exactly what your qualities are. And then working on it from there. I think self-awareness and knowledge of thyself is fundamental. Because when we can understand that, yes, we are here as humans, but then we also need to bring into play that we're also spiritual beings, and bringing those two together is really where the magic is at. Because when we can learn about what our ego is and put that aside and be guided by our higher self to figure out what is our actual mission in life, then that's really where the magic happens from there. So I would say learn about yourself first and foremost, invest in yourself next, and then have a vision for your life in terms of where you're actually wanting to go and what is your mission and your purpose. Because that's going to be your North Star. That's what's going to anchor you to the right direction from, avoiding any kind of circumstances, whether it's not the right people or working for the wrong places or so on. You're always going to have that guiding light right there. And then lastly, getting very clear on your values, because your values are the roots of everything. that'll help to determine who you should be hanging out with and who you should be working for and so on. So just those two things, just getting very clear on yourself first and foremost, and then having a vision and mission for where you're wanting to go. That way you don't fall into the plans of somebody else. That's my that's the advice that I wish I had when I was first starting out.
Put a name on your money, put your money to work, or somebody else will put your money to work. Put some direction on your time. Because if you don't know where you're going to put your time, if you don't have plans for your time, your money, or your purpose, then someone else will find something to do with all of it. And you might not like the result of that, right? If somebody else, because that's basically it. Let's take back our time. Let's take back our energy. Let's take back our money. Let's take back our purpose and utilize ourselves fully and engage in the things that we choose instead.
Yeah.
So list off some of your services. What things can you help people with? And they say, oh my God, Peter, I need you.
Well, I would say if you even have any sort of interest in entrepreneurship, like you feel like, oh my goodness, I would love to help solve problems, that's already indication right there that you have something to offer. Everybody has something to offer. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur. Some people are meant to be more like an intrapreneur at other companies. But if you have any kind of inclination of wanting to be an entrepreneur, or you are an entrepreneur, especially early stage ones, I would say join us on our Facebook group and come on over. It's called EPIQ Business, EPIQ Business. And then there's coaches and other types of professionals that can help to align you to your life path and who you're meant to be serving. If you're a more established business or you're a growing business, maybe you are around the 6-figure mark per year, or you're wanting to grow from there, then I would say just go directly to our website, which is Creatic, CREATIQ.com, and then look at the services there. We're actually in the process of revamping the entire website, but it's all still very valid. And we can assist you with your growth ambitions. We primarily work with professional service providers. So as I mentioned, coaches, therapists, practitioners, but also we have some clients that work in recruitment and human resources, like our OG clients, and we can help them with their websites and with advertising and SEO and just really just winning online.
Awesome. And we scrolled across the screen to show your contact information. We'll show it again.
Oh, so savvy. Look at you.
I'm on the wheel. I'm like a DJ now, like wheels of steel. You know what I was laughing at? Dom put PLV and he put the peace sign up there. In the beginning, I was like, what is PLV? I thought it was epic. And it took me to the end to figure out that was your name, your initials. Ooh, Peter.
That's so cute.
Something is just all through the crack for me, y'all. It's so funny though. But Dom knew what it was like immediately. Hey, Dom, Kiki,
I like that name.
Allie. Thank you guys for hanging in. Anybody else on Facebook or anywhere else where you're hanging out with us? And we'll wrap this up.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an honor. I love the work that you're doing, Erica. And I love that you have Terry by your side. I'll be tuning into Tarot Tuesdays as well. So yeah, this is fun.
I just kidnapped her one day and she's just been here ever since.
I will come back in like a year and give you a progress report on how we are venturing with EPIQ Society. The community is not launched as of yet, as I mentioned, but you can go to the website and just register there so that we can let you know when the community does open. It's EPIQ.one, as in one. So that's www.epic.one, and then you can register there because we're going to do an airdrop for the coins, and then maybe Erica will have me back in a year. We'll be like, how did it go?
All right, because we'll be on Planet Peter, Epic Planet. Ooh, Epic Planet.
I like that.
Yeah, that sounds
Epic
good.
Planet.
That sounds good. Well, ladies and gents, we'll see you on Terry Tuesday. Holler. And please like, share, subscribe. If you had fun with us, let us know. Let us know. Type it in the comments. Let us know.
Bye, everybody.